going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch. Today, I want to clarify something that seems to be the most misconceived terminology in all of Overwatch. What is the meta? What does this term even mean? I'm going to break it down to you in just a second, but first, I want to highlight that the footage that we're going to be watching is actually kind of key to this conversation. I won't be directly referencing it unless necessary, but the story behind it is, I was in Masters playing in 6-stack, where it's a lot harder to play. Got to play the game a lot better in order to rank up in that context, because the ranking system is a little bit biased in my opinion. It wants you to go on win streaks in order to rank up, which means you have to be much better than your opposition, but in 6 stacks, the games are so much harder that you're much more likely to level out and go 50-50, and then you lose 50 SR a game and gain only 5 for winning and eventually rank down to Diamond. That's what happened to me, but I played a few hours in solo queue and grinded my rank back up from 3300 SR to 3600 SR, back into Masters again, abusing the solo queue meta. And it's quite important, actually, that within that small session, I didn't play any heroes that are considered top of the meta. And that's going to wedge in nicely into another major point that I'm going to make in this video, but I have a lot to say and a lot of breakdowns, so let's get into it. The biggest misconception about meta is what it even means. What does the term actually mean? And let me explain that. When we say meta, there's a few contexts and ways you can say the term meta in a multiplayer game. First and foremost, it comes from meta game. And what a meta game is sort of a rock, paper, scissors mind game that we all know inherently exists in Overwatch. If you pick a character like Pharah that flies through the sky, you kind of need something that can shoot Pharah, or it's going to be difficult for you to deal with her. That's simple metagaming right there. But obviously, it requires the pieces that you're using to counter that said part of the game in the metagame to be enacted through the state of play. So the hit scan player is going to have to hit the Pharah, otherwise the choice does nothing. And that's a major point that I need to drive home here. Whatever state and analysis we make of the metagame is always less important than the state of play and the execution of utilizing those pieces. We can go on and on about how triple tank and quad tank is really good and it's the standard meta comp, but when a pro team like Misfits goes to a LAN and plays 3 DPS and plays an entirely separate way of play and succeeds with it, you can't just look that in the face and say it isn't viable, because it is. But that leads me into another entirely massive misconception about the meta, is that there's this assumption that heroes that aren't as good are out of the metagame. No, not at all. That's the opposite of the truth. Every single hero in the game plays a crucial piece in the metagame. Now, just because their pick rate in public matches or in pro matches is lower, the only thing that's required to make a hero viable is if you can win with them. If it is even somewhat possible to claim a victory in the right context with that hero, they are viable. In that sense, just about every hero is viable. It's really hard to meet the standard to say that a hero isn't viable. You may say winning with Torb on attack is incredibly unviable, but at the same time, it takes the enemy team's play to prove that to you. It takes the exercise of actually playing the game to bear out these theories. Okay, so I'm going to go all philosophical on you for a second, so please bear with me. There's this beautiful concept from the Greek philosopher Plato that I'm going to quickly cram into a short explanation of how this relates to Overwatch. Plato has a model that he uses to explain understanding complex ideas as the theory of the forms, or the cave allegory. Us as humans, as we go through life, we try to understand things that aren't really quantifiable. Like, for instance, what is beauty? What is justice? These concepts are beyond our ability to simply point at something and say, that's what it is. We have to explain it and explore it. The metagame of Overwatch is the same way. And to further demonstrate this, Plato explains that us as humans are basically inside a cave, and these concepts and ideas that we're trying to approach aren't actually tangibly in front of us, but instead are basically shadow puppets on the wall, and the actual forms of them lay beyond our reach. There's a fire in the cave that we can't see, and the objects are hidden behind them, out of our own view, but we can see the representation of them through the shadow puppets on the wall. But the shadows aren't actually the thing, we have to interpret it. And that's entirely how the meta game of Overwatch works. We might say that certain heroes are less viable than others, and some strategies are currently stronger, and that's always going to be the case. However, that doesn't mean that all these other heroes are all of a sudden unplayable and you're a bad person and a bad player for trying them out. It means that these ideas and concepts need to be explored. And this leads me into another idea that kind of troubles me sometimes, because when I say the phrase, everything that we teach on this channel is taken from the pro meta, a lot of people take that to assume I'm the jerk in their solo queue matchmaking game, yelling at them for playing an off-meta hero, a quote-unquote off-meta hero, a term I have never used, by the way, to my knowledge at least, because I don't view the game that way. I view all the heroes as selectable options in the meta, with varying degrees of success. It actually takes a hero to be incredibly useless for me to think that they're not viable. For the most part, I think just about everything's viable right now. The question is, how do you unlock that viability? What are the requirements for that to work? So for instance, many times, one of my favorite heroes in Overwatch has been deemed unviable. Pharah. Because hit scan has been so strong, whether it's Widow, McCree, Soldier, people say that Pharah's really bad. But the truth of the matter is, depending at your rank of play, depending on the performance of the enemy team, you can exploit the strengths of Pharah if the enemy hit scans can't hit you or if you kill them first. That's a very important distinction. The state of play and the performance of actually enacting the game is always more important than the meta composition theory. I know that, but sometimes when I say these things, people assume I don't know that. You're not playing in the same level of games oftentimes. So it isn't that you should try to copy and paste everything in this real simple way. A lot of people always ask me for easy answers on these things. How do I deal with a pharmacy? Hit scans. Widowmaker. What if I can't Widow? Well, now you gotta be creative. Pros have these same problems, and they show us what's capable with the max level of coordination. But the truth is, most people play in the solo queue meta anyway, where the coordination is so bad, you can see me doing a Beyblade to wipe the entire enemy team in a meta where we're told Reaper is unplayable and unpickable now. So that's the lesson I want to give to you today. Use your mind to unlock the meta. Learning the meta is a process. A lot of people misuse the term meta. When they say meta, what they really mean is the top of the meta. Oh, Roadhog is a meta hero right now. That doesn't mean every other hero isn't pickable. That means he's one of the most viable heroes. And when they say heroes are off meta, what they really mean to say is they have a lower viability in the meta. Everything's in the meta, always. You can't just discount them and say they aren't pickable. Because if you can figure out a way to win with them through the exploration through the metagame, they're viable. They're viable. If you win with them, they're viable. We can say you might have won easier with other heroes, possibly. We can make that debate. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to your direct competition and what they're capable of doing game to game. What changes is the win condition for each of these heroes. I've talked about this in the past, in a video where I talked about how to improve your 1v1 game. Well, your 6v6 game can be modeled in the same exact way. If you want to pick certain strategies and certain heroes, what is your lose condition? If you're Pharah, getting shot out of the sky by hit scans is what's going to wreck you. So if your team, or at the very least you, focus fire those hit scans first, then none of this meta talk even matters. Once you can deal with the thing that wrecks you, the game's opened up and it's a playground for you to do whatever you want. So I hope this cleared some things up for you guys and we can get on the same page with this. I'd really like it if we stopped saying the meta doesn't matter, the pro meta doesn't matter, that meta doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, everything's in the meta. We're all inputting our own perspective into it and digging out the information and the value from it. It's a collaborative learning experience. It isn't simply like a patch has changed, then automatically, oh, 3/4 of the heroes aren't playable now, don't pick them. It's not that simple. You might have a harder time picking some of them, but you have to think more deeply about it instead of just thinking that there's an easy answer to victory, because there isn't. It's all case-by-case scenarios anyway. How can you exploit the map? How can you exploit the enemy players you're playing against? Are they uncoordinated, for instance? Are the hit scans not good enough at your level? All these factors need to be taken into consideration, and the only meta you need to be thinking about is your current game, the team you're playing against right now. All the theorizing in the world is great when we start to talk about the broad strokes of this over the course of many games, and that's very academic and interesting and something I like to do a lot, but don't mistake that for saying that I can't narrow my focus focus in such a way that lets me see when Bastion on attack is a good thing. I'm gonna leave you guys a little present. Link in the description is a clip from one of our live streams where I take Bastion on attack to utterly wreck point A on Hanamura, and it isn't off meta, it isn't non-meta, it isn't non-standard, it's viable. The reason why it's viable, if your team isn't making coordinated pushes to get past the Mei wall on Hanamura A, and they just want to poke at the choke, you need to amplify your power at poking. There's no reason to play heroes that are supposed to make space for your teammates who aren't capitalizing on the space you're making. You can't play that way, you're not gonna win. So they want to Mei wall up? Fine, we'll turret up and I'll play World of Tanks against you. That's the attitude I want you guys to have. Be creative in these games. Don't tunnel vision your focus in any way. You can be informed by the pro meta, but also adaptive in your own games. That's how you actually get a stronger command of the game of Overwatch. To unlock the game and unlock the meta. Don't look for easy answers. Don't think just because in a video we explain that certain heroes and certain comps are really good, as if that means everything else isn't playable. Because all of the context always matters. What are the enemy running? Are you even able to run the comp that you're trying to run effectively? Are the players on your team fulfilling the roles they're supposed to be? You could run quad tank. If Diva attacks healers instead of removing the DPS of characters like Soldier, you're probably gonna lose. If your Ana tries the DPS instead of heal, you're probably gonna lose. All these factors matter into how the meta works, and in fact, they're more important than the theory, is the point I'm trying to make. I hope I made that clear, and I hope this video was useful to you guys. If it was, please hit the like button. It really does help us out. Subscribe for more. We upload each and every day onto our YouTube channel, so you're going to hit the bell icon so you get notifications when our videos go live. Also, set yourself up with email notifications for our Twitch page so you can see when those streams go live. I just completed a 5-hour marathon stream yesterday, and it was insane. We do all sorts of streams, so likely there's a 1 or 2 that you would like, so check them out. Follow us on Twitter at YourOverwatchYT for stream announcements, updates, and other cool beepity bops. Check out our Discord server to interact with our community and find players to play with. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.